Hey, Terri and Jim here to talk about this week's episode of The Walking Dead, Untie. This is full of spoilers, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in this episode, so we don't want to spoil it for you. We actually have a new sister show that analyzes The Walking Dead from a comics perspective, and since there is, again, spoilers, so much stuff from the comics and getting to Hilltop Community and meeting Gregory and a bunch of these other characters, we are going to let the experts on the comics do that commentary for us. But one of the things that I thought was most interesting about this episode was the way it set up Negan. This is a character who we first heard about technically in the mid-season finale when there was that tease that was posted on AMC, but also really at the beginning of the mid-season premiere when we came back. And in this episode, we hear a lot about Negan, and we realize very quickly that he is not someone we probably want to mess around with.
Yeah, I mean, we know that this is going to be... He is the new big bad going for season 7, and that we will meet him at the end of this season. And so it was interesting to see, sort of knowing that he is this ongoing threat in the comic books, and he is not somebody to be trifled with. He's very formidable. To see sort of the arrogance, really, in a way, or just maybe in a way they're just being naive of the way that the Alexandria group, Rick's group, are sort of treating this like, oh, he's just another thug. I think Daryl calls him a boogeyman with a good story.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite scenes in this episode is when they just brush him aside. And I'm very interested, if there are people who are watching the show and did not know about Negan maybe before this, how they respond to something like that. Yeah. Because to me, and maybe it's part of the industry that we work in, but you hear Negan and he means something important and big to The Walking Dead, even if you don't know the specifics. And I think that's a really cool way to frame it for people who do know it's coming. But even just with the simple context that he is someone big enough that his name related to The Walking Dead, to see Daryl be like, oh yeah, whatever, we'll just kill him and then we'll come back and then we'll resolve this and we'll do the trade. Yeah. I love that moment because you're like,
it's not going to be that easy.
It's not that easy. And I do like the cocky assurance of the group.
Well,
now.
They feel like, look, they took out the governor. Sorry, spoilers for a few seasons
Hopefully,
ago.
if you're at this point, you know that they took out the governor.
But they feel like they've dealt with, after saving Alexandria, they probably feel like
they got rid of the people at
we
Terminus.
know how to deal with big threats, and this is a new test, and just the way Jesus says, your world's about to get a whole lot bigger. It's probably going to get a whole lot uglier and bloodier too, because you don't bring in a big bad like that without things going really south.
I mean, Rick and co, even when they have been, clashing with people like the governor, they've always been the big fish. They've always landed. It's The Walking Dead. These are our heroes. Of course, they hopefully will win in the end. So it is interesting to be at this point where, at least for me as the viewer, as they're talking about Negan and we're seeing the fear that these other characters have.
Well, the fact that you're willing to come back and stab your leader.
Right, yeah. And I feel like for me as the viewer, that was instilling some of that dread and that fear in me. So for us to, and again, I'm speaking for myself, but I think you felt a little bit of this as well, for us as the viewers to say, oh my God, this is someone we should be concerned with. And for the characters to be like, whatever, old news, we'll be back and be
well, I think
the
Rick's group are basically looking at this as, well, these are like the people on the hilltop are basically, this is like Alexandria again. They're on trial. They're not good at fighting. They've been lucky so far, and we've learned our lessons from that. So it's these guys, if they had met a threat that we met a couple of seasons ago, and clearly, you can't help but chuckle a little bit out of nervousness of he's got 20 guys. Yeah, something tells me you get a hell of a lot more than 20 guys.
At one time.
I mean, just the fact that we saw them, that the biker group roll up on Daryl and Sasha and Abraham, and yes, they were very intimidating. Thankfully, you had a bazooka. But, you're not always going to have a bazooka dealing with people. So what do you do when they're tenfold that number?
So how do you think the show is doing it, setting it? We do know Negan is coming. We do know we'll at least meet him. We don't know the length of which we'll meet him, but we know we will meet him by the end of this season. How do you think the show is doing setting him up as a character?
Well, there is, again, the boogeyman aspect, but what you don't want to lose sight of either is this is a guy who could have killed everybody and taken things. So he's smart enough to know, I will trade with these people.
Yeah, you need other people.
I will take what they want because they are good at making it, but I will leave them alive. And basically, it's like dealing with the mob. You're paying protection money to this guy, who's just going to take half of everything that you have. And, so I think they're doing a good job of setting up him as somebody who might be muscle, but smart too, and is a deal maker, maybe at the point at the end of a very sharp pointed bat, And there was a bat reference too.
There was a
right
bat
off
reference.
The bat, yeah.
So those were our thoughts on the build up to Negan, particularly in this episode. We would love to know what you think about how the show is building up its new big bad. So let us know in the comments below. And for all things The Walking Dead, keep it here at IGN.